Our next speaker is Martin Zaltz Austwick, who is a lecturer at UCL, and his voice can be heard as Martin the Sound Man on the Answer Me This podcast. Please welcome Martin Austwick.
Yeah, cool, thank you. So this is talk about eggs. I've actually got an interactive component, which is this packet of egg snacks that someone bought me for my birthday, and I think they're a bit gross, so I'm going to share these with you. Do pass them around. Enjoy. There should be plenty for everybody. I'm interested. This isn't this isn't what I lecture on, by the way. I'm not an egg lecturer, but I'm just I'm sort of interested in eggs because eggs are pretty ubiquitous, or at least they are in my life. I think eggs are a very versatile foodstuff, and so I'm mostly going to be talking about hen eggs, but there's lots of different places you can get eggs from, and that will affect the sort of flavour of the egg and also how big the Scotch egg you end up with is. Pretty sure these things have eggs. Definitely. Not so sure about that one. Eggs are very versatile. So on its own, an egg is a meal, right? I mean, we know this. You can have it boiled, or you can have it pickled, preserved, the classic of Chinese cookery. Raw, you probably wouldn't have it on its own raw, but again, it's a sort of classic hangover cure. You can have it poached. Now, you might think that I've made a mistake here and drawn two pictures of a poached egg. Actually, that's a coddled egg. It's totally different. Often confused, very different cooking method. Fried egg, and of course, the classic breakfast, the scrambled egg. So on its own, an egg can do quite a lot, but I like to think of an egg as a sort of sociable foodstuff. I think when you combine it with other foodstuffs, it starts to do really magical and complex things. So you can combine it with sugar, and you can make things like meringues. You can combine it with flour, and you've got to start to get the basis of cake making. If you combine it with oil, you can start to make sauces, and with butter, you can make curds. I mean, a classic example of how incredible an egg can be is all you need to do is get an egg yolk and pour oil into it, whip it up, and add a little bit of flavour, and you've got mayonnaise. And you can do that at home. It takes about 15 minutes. Incredible. So I'm going to talk about a couple of specific things about eggs. First about meringues, which is something that I enjoy making. Everyone knows how to make meringues, right? Yeah. So you get an egg white, you whip it up, and then you add some sugar. You whip it a bit more, and you put it in the oven. So it's what's sort of often technically called an egg foam, because it's got lots of air in it. And to me, an egg is like a beautiful woman. More specifically, an egg white is like a beautiful woman with curly hair, or actually just any woman or a man with curly hair. Actually, it's a bit too specific. Okay, the analogy doesn't quite work, but you see where I'm going with this. So why is an egg like someone with curly hair? Well, obviously I don't have curly hair. I've got fairly straight hair, but I know people that do have curly hair, and they have tremendous problems with their hair. If it's too humid, if it's too hot, your hair can go really frizzy. It's difficult to manage. But there are solutions. You can work with your hair to do something really outstanding. I would argue that working with curly hair can yield some very, very impressive and dramatic stylistic results. But if you're a curly hair person, you go to a hairdresser, they will often overstyle your hair. They'll often try and work with it in a way that they would work with a straight-haired person. And you end up with something that actually is not much more interesting than a straight-haired person would achieve. This is exactly like eggs. And this is the science bit. So this is real egg science. So egg whites and egg yolks are sort of similar to this in some ways. Essentially, it's a mixture of proteins and water, and there's probably some other stuff in there as well. But this is the sort of active bit that we work with when we do egg cookery. You've got these long protein strands, and in the natural state, they're just sort of stuck together. And when you whisk your egg white, what it does is it kind of pulls the water, it pulls a sort of constant stream of water through those protein strands, and it makes them unfurl and start to line up. So rather than getting these sort of little balls of protein floating around, you start to form a structure. And in a meringue, you also are introducing air. So you have these bubbles of air surrounded by these sort of films of eggy water, but very eggy water. The protein is really providing the scaffolding there. So if you've ever made a meringue, if you over-whip over-whisk the meringue, what will happen is the proteins will line up more and more and more and more, and they'll stick to each other. Because the proteins have these sort of sticky bonds on the outside of them, and eventually they'll start to stick to each other more than they sort of stick to the water. So you get like a separation of the water on one side and the egg on the other. So in nature, this structure of like a bridge over eggy water is something someone might write a song about. But in egg cookery, it's a nightmare. It's a bad meringue. But luckily, this is completely rectifiable, because eggs really like sugar. Sugar. There we go. Eggs really like sugar. And actually, this is a bit of egg chemistry that I'm a little bit grey on, because the explanations I've heard, I think, are a little bit probably don't get the real egg science. But the argument is that the sugar makes the water syrupy, so it's more viscous, and so it tends to stick between the protein chains rather than just running off. It's more difficult for it to sort of be squeezed out. I think probably the truth is a bit more complicated than that. But that's how you get to a really good meringue. You whip it and whip it and whip it, and the point when it's just about to start to separate, you add a load of sugar, and you've got a perfect meringue. So, so this is the book that has sort of been my egg Bible for the science behind eggs. This is McGee's On Food and Cooking, and he says it much better than I can. The transformation of eggs by heat seems remarkable, but consider what beating can do. Physical agitation normally breaks down and destroys structure, but beat eggs and you create structure. So that's why I love meringues. I think that in itself is kind of magical. Okay, let's talk about egg chat. This is sort of another plea for sort of audience intervention at this point, really, because egg chat is something that I started probably a couple of years ago. So when I started getting into egg cookery and I started talking about the meringues and custards and the things that I was making, I used egg chat on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to talk about eggs and take photos of eggs. And you can see actually most of these photos, surprisingly, are not photos I've put up. They're normally friends of mine taking the piss out of me rather than actual real people. But anyway, so it was this nice sort of sweet hashtag where people would, see an egg they liked, tag it and put it up on the internet. But about 18 months ago, this happened. Egg chat, it's a bit blurry because I didn't take a very good photo in my notebook. This happened, egg chat wars. So I was, I had my egg chat column in Hootsuite or whatever it was, set up for my egg chat alerts. And I started to see tweets like this going, hey, why not check out our cool webinar on eggs? It's all about how eggs are like low cholesterol and they're really awesome, guys. And I thought, okay, what's this? And this kind of built momentum over the course of the week. There were more of these. Eggs are really good for you, and they're super tasty. I don't know who these people were. I've kind of labelled them the Egg Marketing Board of America, which I assume is, I'm sure that used to be a real thing. So this kind of went on and on and on. People talking about how excited they were about this online egginar. And this is annoying. I mean, this was it's very, very corporate and very kind of douchey, and that irritated me. And then things kind of took a turn for the worse because then vegans discovered the hashtag. And vegans aren't really a fan of eggs, if you're not familiar with their work. They got really angry. They were like, well, here's a link to a photo of these eggs that you're chatting about. And there'd be like a photo of a chicken crying itself to death. I mean, really horrible stuff. Like, because I buy free-range eggs. Factory farming is really, really horrible. So there's all of this stuff. So there were these people going, here's a picture of a battery farm with the chickens, crying, and then there'd be someone from the Egg Marketing Board going, oh, I'm really looking forward to seeing all those runny yolks tomorrow. So I got extremely irritated. Luckily, it blew over. So I'm a bit worried about it happening again. So I started to sort of take stock of my my egg position. So I wrote a list of friends of eggs. Obviously, I'm in that camp. The patriarchy. Because, I mean, not eggs themselves, but consuming eggs, that's taking control of the female reproductive process for commercial gain. So that's... What I'm saying is, if you like the patriarchy, you should like eggs. The Egg Marketing Board, so these guys who are like all sort of, with their webinars. And I started to worry that I was on the wrong side of history. On the other side, the enemies of eggs, people who are allergic to eggs, and vegans, I've conceived a vegan as being a pirate with heterochromia eating an apple and a sort of a very wispy beard. I don't know what vegans. I've never met a vegan actually. I have. I'm joking. So I thought, well, I need to reach out to these people because actually that's probably the group of people I more identify with than the patriarchy or the egg marketing board. So I haven't included the recipe, but I've created probably not the world's first, the world's first vegan Scotch egg. And there it is. So if you'd like to get the recipe off me afterwards, I can tell you what's in there. Not any eggs. That's a spoiler. So I just want to leave you with one last slide, which is it's very frustrating, I think, when a perfectly pleasant discussion on the internet gets hijacked by these extremists. I don't think anyone gains from these opposite viewpoints, and I don't want it to be dominated by the Egg Marketing Board and pirate vegans. I want people like you to get involved in the chat, normal people that would come to a seminar about eggs. So next time you're talking about eggs on the internet, next time you have a photograph of a nice poached egg that you've cooked, or an artisanal Scotch egg, please use egg chat, and we can wrestle this back from those dangerous minds. Thank you.